Hi, this is Joseph Phillips. One of the key activities you'll do in project management is to manage stakeholder expectations. Of course, stakeholders are any individual that are affected by your project, and their expectations are their beliefs of what they will receive as a result of your project. So when you go about managing stakeholder expectations, one of the first things you have to communicate are the benefits and the risk of the project. So what are they actually going to receive as a project? You don't want a stakeholder to have an assumption about what they're going to get out of the project, but you also want to clearly communicate what risk may affect the project cost and the project schedule. When there are issues, which usually means there is some type of a disagreement or misunderstanding, you need to go immediately to that issue with that stakeholder and resolve the problem. Your goal is to promote buy-in and synergy with the stakeholders, that they're on board with the project and that they are following your leadership to get the project done. You want to limit disruptions. You don't want stakeholders constantly asking for changes and complaining and causing trouble in your project. So you need to be proactive, and usually you can do this by just communicating. And then, of course, you want buy-in. Now, the buy-in with stakeholders aren't just for your customers, but also with management and the people on your project team. Now, some details about how you manage stakeholder expectations, the mechanics of this process. First off, you need a stakeholder register. It's just like a phone book, a directory of all the stakeholders, their contact information, and then that helps you create a stakeholder management strategy of what will be your approach to managing stakeholders that have a high influence and a high interest, as opposed to stakeholders who have a low influence and a low interest. So everything between those two spectrums. Now, the issue log and the change log, these are two documents that you'll use throughout the project, but in light of stakeholder expectations, the issue log will document when there are disagreements or misunderstandings and what the outcomes of those issues were. And then the change log, when a stakeholder asks for a change request, that's always recorded in the change log. That way, when you get to scope verification, the stakeholder can see that the change was requested and here's how it was implemented, and there's no discrepancies later in the project. And then all of this information becomes part of organizational process assets, becomes part of the project archives when you get to closing the project. Now, just to sit here and talk about managing stakeholder expectations is easy. To actually do it, though, you have to rely on some interpersonal skills. You need a little bit of charm, a little bit of savvy, and you need to be involved and interested in what the stakeholder is saying so that you're building trust and resolving conflict. And then we have active listening, and actually we could also put on here effective listening. Active listening means that I'm just understanding what the stakeholder is saying, but effective listening means that I am understanding what they're saying, but I'm also understanding the intent of the message. Sometimes there's that underlying message that you have to pick up on. And then by working with stakeholders, you can overcome resistance to change, and that's part of that promote synergy and buy-in for your project. And there are the two listening types that I just mentioned. You'll need to know that for your exam. Active listening and effective listening. Active listening means that you understand just the message. There's no interpretation of the meaning. Effective listening, though, means that you understand the intent and the underlying message of the meaning so that you know what the stakeholder is actually saying.